Back in May, Marvel dropped the major news that Storm was going to be joining the Avengers. This is an incredibly exciting development that we thankfully won't have to wait long for, since the story will be coming out in August of this year. It's part of Marvel's From the Ashes era. In addition to joining the Avengers, Storm is also getting a brand new solo series. Storm will also be getting a new look, designed by Lucas Werneck. Marvel has posted what the costume will look like and a sneak peek of it in action with the cover of the first book of the new series. The team working on the comic are all known fans of Storm, so it's safe to say that our girl is in good hands, and fans are very excited to see what drama unfolds between her and T'Challa since their divorce. Melissa Gould's Songbird has been around for a while, going from Screaming Mimi, the wrestler, to Screaming Mimi of the Masters of Evil, but it wasn't until 2016 that she joined an Avengers team. It was Avengers Idea Mechanics, or AIM, and she was a double agent, also working with criminal John Garrett. Her cover was blown and she ended up fighting her teammates, but her morals were changing to wanting to be one of the good guys. So to make up for her double agentry, she became a triple agent with alliance to DaCosta. She was discovered again, but this time by the criminal Garrett, who then captured her and tried to get her to give him the location of the team's headquarters. She didn't, and Garrett was eventually neutralized. Songbird decided to take some much needed vacation time, deciding to go to New Jersey, where she was easily found by the new Thunderbolts and brought back into a fight. No rest for the wicked there. Her names are all sound related because her thing is she screams really loud due to her altered vocal cords. The screams have a variety of effects, like physically hitting someone, or manipulating them emotionally, or just hurting their ears. Robert Maverick joined the US Avengers in 2017 as Red Hulk. Maverick used Hulk plugins to become Red Hulk. A Hulk plugin is a device that allows its user to become a Hulk for 1 hour every 36 hours. It's like an artificial Hulk, and the short time period is there because any longer would result in the human's body experiencing health complications. While on the US Avengers, Maverick was targeted by a double agent, Kyle. Kyle infected him with nanites that would bypass the Hulk plugin and gave Hydra full control of Red Hulk. This was bad for many reasons, but it had a severe effect on Maverick's health. Hydra kept him in his Hulk form 800 times longer than they should have. So when he was finally turned back, his skin was permanently red and there was damage to his organs and body operations. Maverick was benched because of this, but he fought when it mattered, once donning the Iron Patriot armor to fight the OG Hulk. Tippy Toe is Squirrel Girl's sidekick. I know, I would not have expected that either. Squirrel Girl needed an army of squirrels for a battle, and Tippy Toe was the only survivor of all those squirrels, becoming then Squirrel Girl's permanent partner. The two have fought some truly incredible battles together. Tippy Toe has been where I'm guessing no squirrel has been before, like the moon to confront Galactus. Tippy Toe is not reliant on Squirrel Girl and will go on adventures all by herself, one time teaming up with Rocket Raccoon to stop Plant Man from destroying Central Park. The most shocking story in the biography of this squirrel's life has got to be that she once had some of the power cosmic in her. Tippy's choice of attire is typically a pink ribbon around her neck, so she is a fashion icon in addition to being a super squirrel. What can't she do? Another character from the 80s has joined the Avengers team. Gomi's backstory was that he was the younger cousin and lab assistant of this researcher that was obsessed with Marvel Girl. The researcher wanted to make his own Marvel Girl. First though, he created intelligent lobsters, the strength of a human, but we will get there in a minute. When the evil scientist couldn't create his own Marvel Girl, he decided to just experiment on his cousin instead, attempting to give him telekinetic abilities. It did and didn't work. He got telekinetic abilities, but they are super limited and uncontrollable. All Gomi can do is throw a blast of force in front of him. He can control the direction, but not much else about it. Gomi's sidekicks, pets, best friends, you pick, are the two lobsters mentioned before. They are named Bill and Don. Unfortunately, Don was stepped on by Devil Dinosaur, but Bill has lived long enough to see Gomi join the superhero initiative Avengers World. This went down in 2019. 2015 was a big year for Emily Guerrero. She made her debut into Comic Society and joined an Avengers team. What a season out on the town. Emily might have been better known to some by her hero name, Synapse. She thought she was just a girl, but turns out somewhere in her family history is some Inhuman. She discovered this part of herself when the Terrigen Cloud moved into their house like it paid rent, tent and encased her family in cocoons. It was after she exited her cocoon that she gained her powers, which are telepathy, literally affecting people's brain chemistry by manipulating the electricity running through their head, boosting immune systems, and suppressing the powers of others. Captain America saw her potential and recruited her for the Avengers Unity Division, representing Inhumans. Her first battle as an Avenger was iconic. It was against Super Adaptoid. She mind-controlled a flock of pigeons and got them to attack it, giving the rest of the Unity Division the chance to take out the villain. No one is doing it like her. One thing we can count on for Steve Rogers is he is going to start an Avengers team. In the new story, Avengers Twilight, Steve is pretty old and doing what he does best, starting an Avengers team to save the world. And just a warning, from this point on, there will be spoilers for the Avengers Twilight comics. The world that this happens in is not Earth 616, its temporary assignment is TRN 1096, but in this world, the Avengers went through everything that they did before, but then Ultron gains control of the Hulk, enhances a bunch of supervillains, and leaks the identity of many superhumans. Of course, the heroes are blamed for all this, and the Avengers are disbanded, leaving the world to get worse and worse until it is a completely controlled society under constant S.H.I.E.L.D. surveillance. Steve Rogers has the super soldier serum removed from his body, meaning he retired and grew old. Thor went off-world, Iron Man lost his head literally, other heroes either disappeared, went underground, or were arrested. It wasn't until some weirdo decided to make a documentary that made Red Skull look good that Steve finally got up to fight again. Steve started working with the team Defenders. The team was able to replicate the super soldier serum, and Steve could Captain America once more, doing what he does best, leading the Avengers that I personally am calling this new team the Twilight Avengers. So I mentioned in that last point that Tony lost his head. However, Tony's son kept the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist Noggin in a containment unit so he could use his brain to puzzle out problems. Steve broke into the location where his head was being kept and stole Tony, and with the help of an electrical surge from Thor, was able to bring that head to life again, reviving Tony Stark. Now, Tony is on the Twilight Avengers as Iron Man once again. He has an android body and his head floats around in his helmet, but he is still the Tony we know and love. It's like he never left. Tony fights wearing his red Iron Man armor. After the big battle with Ultron, people were turning on the heroes. Iron Man was attacked, and that's how he ended up just ahead. Tony has a personal stake in this futuristic game, as his son is a major player on the opposing side, leading to some very interesting character exploration for Tony's character. The Twilight Avengers series has given us two exciting new character debuts. One is Tyler, the Twilight Avengers guy in the chair, essentially. Since there are only 6 issues of this story, we don't know a whole lot about Tyler, but we do know that he is really smart, a talented engineer and mechanic, and a very capable fighter. He is described as a technological genius. Tyler is fearless and has very strong morals. Though he might not be on the front lines of every battle, he is working wonders from his guy in the chair position, overriding security systems, creating new tech for the team, or keeping an ear on transmissions. Maybe he will make his main time lane debut soon. And finally, we have Ramona Jones's Hawkeye. She was originally part of this world's Thunderbolts as Bullseye, but her morals were too good for the team. Upon being asked to harm an unarmed target, Ramona realized that the Thunderbolts wasn't where she wanted to be anymore. When Steve showed up to retrieve Tony, Bullseye helped him escape, and in the process, landed a spot on the Twilight Avengers. Bullseye is the new Hawkeye for this Earth. She was trained by the military to be a high-precision shooter with a 100% success rate. Thor was actually the one to deem Ramona as the new Hawkeye. When they met, he remarked that she had a great warrior spirit in her, so she has the Thor stamp of approval. It's unclear if Ramona has any connection to Jessica Jones, but I like to think she does because that would be cool. The Avengers Twilight series is out in full now and only has 6 issues, so a really quick read that has my personal stamp of approval. I really liked it. There is now a member of the team that is a sentient island. Their name is Impossible City. They just dropped in July of last year, so it's almost their birthday. Impossible City was created by a separate group of heroes that had trapped a bunch of monsters called the Ashen Combine inside the city. The heroes eventually just mysteriously disappeared and the monsters got out. They proved really quickly why they were trapped. They started destroying worlds and defeating heroes, all while dragging around Impossible City as their headquarters against their will. The city was modified to serve the group, but it knew that it didn't want to. It wasn't until the Avengers battled the monsters that things got interesting. Captain America and Black Panther went up to the island intending to destroy it. However, the island started speaking to them, which was probably the most normal thing to happen to them all that week. The island was convinced the Avengers weren't going to win the fight, so it offered to blow itself up as a sacrifice, but Captain America and Black Panther were like, absolutely not, you're a good guy now, so don't do that. The Avengers defeated the Ashen Combined because they are the Avengers, and then they destroyed the things on the island that were controlling it, so now Impossible City is free. Impossible City asked the Avengers to join the team, and who are they to say no? If mutants can have a sentient island, so can the Avengers. Welcome to the team, Impossible City, she says like she's on it. One can dream though. Psylocke has been around since the 80s, but she just joined the Avengers after the events at that one Hellfire Gala and everything that came after that one gala. Captain America was putting together the new Avengers Unity Squad and recruited Psylocke to the team. She joined because they had common goals. She probably wouldn't have done it unless she needed to. It wasn't until she got through a few battles on the team that she decided to stick around. After the Avengers came out victorious against Orchis and the Mutant Liberation Front, she must have decided to stick around considering she is still an active member. Psylocke is known for her telepathic abilities and her martial arts skills. She's been part of the X-Men for years. It's the Avengers that are just now cluing in on her talent. Similar to Psylocke is Penance, or Monet. She started out as an X-Men, but after the disastrous events of that one gala, she joined Captain America's Avengers Unity Division. Penance is actually the second identity of Monet that was created by her evil brother. She told him she wouldn't go around the universe terrorizing people with him, so he turned her into Penance, a mute creature with sharp, hard red skin. Eventually, she was freed from this body thanks to other family members. She did have a villain era, but ultimately, when mutants were in danger, she stepped up to the plate, joined the good side, the Avengers Unity Division, and saved her community. Johnny Watts went from vigilante on the West Coast to West Coast Avenger. Johnny met Kate Bishop while she was investigating the disappearance of his sister's girlfriend. Naturally, he decided to help Kate out, and they saved his sister's girlfriend. Seems like he had fun working with Kate because they continued working together and investigating crimes. At this point, all Kate knows is that Johnny is just a human that's really good at fighting. However, during like this really big battle, Johnny shields her from some falling concrete, so surprise, he actually has superpowers. His power is omnimorph duplication, and that is turning your body into any substance you touch. Watts wears vibranium jewelry, so he always has access to a strong substance to transform into, and I love it when heroes are smart. It seems like a bare minimum requirement, but you would be surprised. When Kate was reforming the West Coast Avengers, Watts was all for it, and at this point, he took on his hero name. You are never going to guess what Johnny Watts' hero name is. Fuse. The commitment to the bit is outstanding. Sister and brother duo Goodness and Lucky joined the West Coast Avengers back in 2016, but it wasn't an easy road to get there. Goodness and Lucky are humans with the power to turn into an animal. Goodness into a blue wolf and Lucky into a pink two-tailed fox. One night, while they were minding their business, a group of supervillains attacked their neighborhood, leading to Lucky ending up in the hospital. It eventually came out that the attack was orchestrated by a councilman, so a high-risk area of the city would be eliminated. Obviously, Goodness is really upset about her current circumstances and ends up transforming into her wolf form in the police station. The Great Lakes Avengers were able to help out and get her to relax, and she ultimately decided to use her odd power for good. She joined the GLA as Good Boy, helping the team defeat the Bodge Squad. As of right now, Lucky has not joined the team. Gwenpool quickly charmed people when she appeared on a variant cover, so much so that she manifested into an actual Marvel character. Despite technically first appearing in 2015, she didn't join an Avengers team until 2018, the same team Fuse would have joined. When Kate was pulling together that team, Gwenpool was accidentally recruited after appearing in the room right after Kate rejected a bunch of unqualified candidates. Gwenpool might be chaotic, but she is good at what she does. She, like Deadpool, is a fourth wall breaker because she was from a universe where Marvel is just comics and movies, so she understands how how heroes' stories worked and the physical page structure of them. She interacts with text boxes, manipulates stories based on writing conventions one would typically see in a super story. Her personality and unique character backstory and her overall aesthetic have cemented her as a fan favorite character. When her edition of the West Coast Avengers disbanded, she was aware that it was because the comic was cancelled, and that led to some major and strange developments in the Marvel Universe. She was worried she would be cancelled or erased and wanted to ensure she would always have a place in the Marvel Universe, and one of her many attempts at doing that was trying to unmask Spider-Man, among many other things. Brandy Selby was here for a good time, not a long time, and I am speaking so literally. She was born with the Starbrand. However, every time she used the power that came with it, she would quickly age. Years of her life would biologically fly by in just a couple of hours or even minutes. Brandy has had quite the life. The Avengers assisted with her birth. Then she ended up in an alternate reality being raised by Groot and Rocket Raccoon. Good luck, Brandy, with that pairing. Unfortunately, Rocket of that universe got into a fight with Dr. Spectrum and lost more than just the fight. As revenge, Brandy went to find Spectrum and take him out. There was also all this drama happening on Earth. Coulson warped reality into a world without the Avengers, and Starbrand helped fix that. Eventually, she ended up back on Earth, fought the multiverse masters of evil. She aged into a young adult from that brawl. As the Avengers were traveling across time, Starbrand eventually used her powers to the point of becoming an old woman, and she was of course benched. She ended up saving the day when she and Firehair sacrificed themselves in an effort to undo the damage to all the Earths by the Masters. She literally was around for a good time, but not a long time, and her sacrifice will not be forgotten. But I mentioned Firehair briefly for a second there, and she's got quite the life story. I have to yap about it. She debuted in 2017, but in 616 timeline, she is literally a million years old, maybe more. And here's just a short list of some of what she has done in her life. She bonded with the Phoenix Force, she was raised by wolves, founded the prehistoric Avengers, fell in love with Odin, fought a Celestial, sacrificed herself for the fate of the universe, and is technically one of Thor's moms. Truly, her memoir would be the most jam-packed book to ever hit the shelves in a New York Times bestseller. While she is not part of the modern Avengers, she is part of the prehistoric Avengers and met up with the modern Avengers, and that's when she sacrificed herself alongside Brandy. She was one of the first hosts for the Phoenix Force. You might also see her referred to as Lady Phoenix. The reason she is kind of Thor's mom is she assisted with his birth. Mother Earth gave birth to him, but then he passed due to Lawfrey, so Firehair resurrected him and put some of the Phoenix power in him, making her his second mother. Quite the life story. Weapon H is another new kid on the block, debuting in 2017, joining an Avengers team in 2019. He's been part of the War Avengers and the Savage Avengers, and when I tell you his life story, you will understand why. First things first, he made this list because I read that he was a hybrid of Wolverine and Hulk and verbally said, "Oh my god, that's so cool," so he had to be here. Clayton Cortez, before he became this hybrid Hulkverine, was just a kid who dealt with some bad cards. He was just a kid who was dealt some bad cards in life. He didn't have a nice family, and when he grew up and joined the military, he was assigned to a mission that involved harming innocents, so he sabotaged it. That got him sold to the Weapon X Batch H division that was working on creating Hulk Wolverine cyborgs with a taste for endangering mutants. Not his day, week, month, or even his year. He became Weapon H. He eventually escaped that facility, and his main mission was making sure all data of his family and friends that he likes are off the radar of anyone who would want to harm them. He has met both Wolverine and Hulk and fought with and against both Wolverine and Hulk. He fought them either out of necessity or he was under mind control. He was recruited by Captain America to join Captain America's War Avengers, and they had a great time. Weapon H has all the powers that Wolverine and Hulk has. He wins at life, and I cannot think of a cooler pairing. Finishing off with another new Avenger that I think is really, really cool, we have Deathlock. Deathlock is Miles Morales from Earth 807,128. Originally part of the Champions, he ended up facing Annihilus. In that fight, Miles ended up passing, but then he didn't. He ended up turning into Deathlock. From what I can gather from the comic, it's likely because Michael stole the cosmic control rod from Annihilus and broke it. It caused him to become more cyborg than man. Miles in this universe is very similar to his 616 counterpart. He's fearless and funny and fights like his life depends on it because it always does. Deathlock is part of the Savage Avengers, just like Weapon H. Even though they are from separate Earths, there's a lot of timeline messes happening, and that's how that happened. Deathlock debuted in May of 2022. We are starting off so strong with a worm-like metahuman called Velvet and Worm. What's going on? It's Doom Patrol, which is the right place for a villain turned hero like this. So Velvet is a worm form that works with a kid called Worm. Velvet likely created the human kid because he is capable of creating humanoid constructs capable of independent thoughts and actions. Likely he did this because he was supposed to be a spy for Peacemaker. The kid body could stay in one place while the worm roams around collecting information. The worm also lives in the body's stomach. It looks really weird and I don't like it. The boy and worm, they are separate things. The boy doesn't survive the end of the comic, but Velvet the Worm does and joins Doom Patrol, accompanying them on later missions. We have yet another alien out to destroy the universe. Everyone say hello to Necrostar. It looks like a big, scary, slippery starfish. The Necrostar is a star conqueror alien. On its to-do list is conquer the universe. We've seen ambition like this before, so how will the Necrostar do it this time? Well, it has necrospores on it and in it that it can release. When released, these spores attach onto hosts and control their minds. The Necrostar is capable of flight, regeneration, which makes sense if it's a big starfish. It's also capable of telepathy, adjacent actions. It debuted in Titan's Beast World in November of last year. We've unlocked a new character, one of Dick Grayson's ancestors. He is known as Son of Grey. He lived in 14th century Normandy, and he is the Nightwing of his time. Son of Grey was a merchant's son, but his father was killed by, I'm assuming, the Joker of that time. Son of Grey is naturally very, very upset by his father's death and goes on a revenge spree, in which we see him do all the acrobatic feats that we are used to seeing from Dick Grayson. He is described to have a fire in his heart and be the spawn of Satan or sin. He is one resilient fighter. He was speared by the 14th century Joker and walked it off. He also almost said his own version of the Princess Bride line, "I am the son of Grey, you killed my father," but he never got to finish the line because the Joker gave him the name we know today, Grayson. The story is really short, it's only 2 parts, but it is always fun to see old-timey versions of your favorite characters. There is an evil version of Jesus that was just born. Speaking of, his name is The End. His mom is Natalia Knight, also known as Nocturna. She's a vampire, and vampires aren't supposed to be able to naturally reproduce, so The End is kind of a big red flag, a big question mark, and it's a bit scary that he's here. His mom thinks he is the Dark Messiah and his destiny is to usher an era of horror and truth. I would love it if he didn't do that. Also, that seems like a lot to ask of this little kid. At least wait until his terrible twos. The End made his debut in May's Outsiders 5. So now we have Evil Jesus, and sticking with the Christmas theme, Evil Santa also made his debut recently. DC's Krampus truly would scare anybody. He looks like absolutely terrifying. He made his debut when Batman Santa Claus Silent Night came out on December 5th of last year. The comic is basically Santa and Krampus. They were once friends, and then Krampus was locked away. Now he's back and terrorizing the city, out to ruin Christmas to get revenge on Santa. Him and Krampus were like a good cop, bad cop duo. Krampus is clearly an extremely high-level threat now because everybody comes out to lend a hand to trap him. It is like the Christmas party of the decade, and I do hope they did a Secret Santa considering they were all together for the holidays. Krampus considers himself a god beast, which does make sense as he's shown to have supernatural powers, likely developed from his time in the Nightmare Realms. I tried looking for other Krampuses that could exist in DC history and found nothing, which I really can't believe they never capitalized on the character before. Glad they did now. Batman once visited a child psychiatrist. He went to therapy. I know, I can't believe it either. His name is Dr. Charles Quinton. He worked at Arkham Asylum. Dr. Quinton founded the children's wing of Arkham Asylum, and it was the pride of the city. But then he ran away without a trace and with all the files for his patients. That was the thing that ruined Arkham and made it what it is today. While working with Bruce, the doctor did help, but he made Bruce forget part of the incident with his parents and also all the memories of their time working together. Dr. Quentin is very mysterious, and it's suggested that maybe he manipulated Bruce into eventually becoming Batman. Unfortunately, Dr. Quentin exists on Earth 46, so that is the Batman Gargoyle of Gotham world, so it's like not canon, but it is fun. The story is interesting, and basically it's kind of hinting that Bruce would have been Batman in every universe, even if he got therapy. Apex Ava is a decently new character, and her story is something else. Ava was a hunter specializing in rare or dangerous animals. Every time she completed a job, she would get that animal tattooed on her skin. She discovered she had a disease and was dying. For some reason, she decided that since she is dying, other people should go down with her. She switched to hunting people. Thankfully, she got caught and put in Arkham Tower. First day of Beast World rolls around and a spore comes into her cell. She has nothing to lose. She has a few days left to live, so why not eat the weird thing? The spore ends up curing her disease and turning her green and giving her animal-based powers. She decides to become the Wicked Witch of the West and gather up all the other beast people and create an underground fighting ring. Nightwing and Superman end up capturing Ava and stopping her messed up fighting ring, but before she can be held accountable, she escapes by turning into a bird, so she is still out there and likely still causing trouble. I personally am obsessed with Elizabeth Marston Prince. If you haven't heard of her, she is from the Wonder Woman Trinity universe, and she is Wonder Woman's daughter. Elizabeth grew up alongside fellow super kids Damian Wayne and John Kent. She was a bit younger, so they would often babysit her. There were a few times the trio went on missions together as kids, one time defeating Killer Croc, the other time they just visited the moon because Elizabeth wouldn't fall asleep. Trinity is still quite young and still loves to mess with her friends, challenging them to races, or making them all go on a mission to a Greek cave where their tolerance for pain, honor, and skill are tested. Elizabeth is her mother's daughter, she trained like her mom, she leads like her mom, and she is immortal and strong like her mom. What is quite cool about Elizabeth is she is the first holder of the 3 lassos of fate. I am urgently calling all fans of the Warrior Cats book series because you are going to love Kyle the Catboy. I can't believe this character exists for many reasons. Catboy is already a term used in pop culture with a very specific brand of person in mind. What was DC thinking? Kyle is your typically troubled kid. He was a petty criminal, went to juvie a few times, and didn't have a strong family unit. He had a mentor, but that mentor ended up betraying him. Eventually, he made the decision to splice his DNA with feline DNA, wild choice, and he became Catboy. There is lore surrounding Catboys, which means there are many Catboys in this universe. They typically travel in groups called prides. Kyle is pretty special. He knows magic, which he learned from the evil mentor guy. Some things Kyle has used the magic for include electroblasts, creating a bird to locate a specific target, controlling fire, he can make someone take an impromptu catnap, and creates force fields. Batman enlists his help for dealing with a problem, and like most times Batman is around an orphan troubled kid, he becomes a positive, almost father figure in his life and transforms the little outlaw into a little hero. Kyle ends up becoming a vigilante just like Batman. Truly, I can't believe what I'm about to share with y'all. The Childminder's story is out of this world. The Childminder is the name of the character. She is a bit older than some of the other characters, at almost 1.5 years old, but her story makes up for it. Important to note about the character, she is a time scavenger and she's kinda like me, cares a whole lot about the kid heroes who disappeared without a trace. Flashpoint caused a lot of problems, a lot of timeline changes, and caused 13 Golden Age sidekicks to disappear. They were taken out of history and placed in stasis pods. Unfortunately, their place of freeze was attacked and they were released back into the timeline before it was ready for them. These sidekicks were just kind of floating through history, so Childminder tracked them all down and took them to, you ready for this? Orphan Island, if the boot fits. Time is not a thing there, so the sidekicks would be safe there until further notice. Childminder is a bad person, but everything she is doing sounds good, right? Well, this half chicken, half old woman clown also kidnapped sidekicks that weren't erased from history, like for example, Wing. Childminder says she cares about the kids, but then this guy named Hourman shows up and he says he will return her to her youth in exchange for the kids, and she says yes, so how much does she really care about them? But then a fight breaks out, and then a time storm breaks out. Childminder is hit with energy and de-ages to the point where she is an egg again. At some point, she claims to be the inspiration for the children's storybook character Mother Goose, as if her lore wasn't wild enough. We are starting off with the new Wonder Girl. I am obsessed with Yara Flor. I think she is so cool. She is listed as an Amazon of the Amazon. I want to be her. There have, of course, been other Wonder Girls, but Yara debuted in 2021. Her mother was an Amazon who ended up in Brazil, and while in Brazil, she fell in love with a local deity, and then we got Wonder Girl. Yara was born in Brazil, but unfortunately did not get to grow up there as her mother was taken out, so she was taken to safety to be raised in Boise, Idaho. At 21, she traveled back to Brazil and quickly starts to be a hero, saving people from burning cars and meeting mermaids. Truly was not the vacation she thought she would be getting. She ends up on Mount Olympus at one point and literally trains with the gods and got a Pegasus named Jerry. The fact that this isn't my life is actually heartbreaking. Yara's powers include generally being a superhuman, but also she is capable of currently limited hydrokinesis. Part of her various training led her to be a master in archery, war, horseback riding, combat of all forms, and swordsmanship. Yara goes through a few more character building battles before it's time for her to join a JLA team. When Dark Crisis rolls around, she is offered a spot on John Kent's new team. We'll yap about that next. She actually rejects him at first, but then Titan Tower is attacked and she reconsiders John's offer, ends up helping the team out. She is my hero, and I hope she stays here forever. Like father, like son though, John Kent is following in his dad's footsteps and taking charge creating the newest iteration of the Justice League. This new league is made up of Supergirl, Dr. Light, Booster Gold, Jamie's Blue Beetle, Ted's Blue Beetle, Damian's Robin, Jackson's Aqualad, Frost, Harley Quinn, and Frankenstein. That is quite the lineup of 10 young heroes. This team was formed in 2022's Dark Crisis 1 because the older Justice League members all perished and the worlds are pretty messed up and need heroes to keep their villains at bay. There were some more experienced heroes around, but they didn't believe the Justice League was actually dead, so they were busy out looking for them. The new Justice League was a band of misfits, but they had heart and determination and they were doing their best. Though the team didn't end up working out, it was interesting and it gave Harley Quinn the chance to show off her heroic side. Up next is the Ray. I know the character isn't like new. He existed before the last reset, but he is back on a Justice League team. Ray made his debut back into the main story now in JLA, The Ray Rebirth, in early 2017, joining Batman's new JLA that same year. I personally think Ray's story and powers are super interesting. He absorbs light and then can take it and direct the energy from it in light beams, rearrange molecules, create things out of light, and because the way we see is through light hitting our eyes, he can manipulate light, causing illusions. He is also able to make himself invisible by bending light. Ray claims that if he were to absorb enough light, he would never need to nourish himself again, so photosynthesis, but that's the only plant thing about him, I assure you. For most of his life, Ray was kept in the dark about his powers by being literally in the dark. His mom told him he was allergic to any light, fatally allergic, and that was enough for him. He never saw the light of day. They went to extreme measures for this. Ray got no birthday candles, he could only watch TV with the screen on low light and only for an hour at a time. Eventually, Ray got tired of this when he grew up and can't imagine why. He eventually snuck out and within hours was literally glowing and then turned invisible. He was invisible for 4 years until he helped save someone and made himself just like a beacon of light of a person, and then he was a superhero. Another relatively new Justice League team is Justice League Queer. It's an informal team technically, but I think they're cool, so I had to include them. The team is led by Sorcerer Extrano. He formed the hero team because he wanted to make sure other heroes who identified in the LGBTQ+ community knew they weren't alone. Extrano was the first DC hero to come out if we were looking at it using like our time. There are about 15 heroes on this team. Some highlights include Ray, who we talked about, Aqualad, Crush, and Batwoman. The team was first brought together during a pride parade. A villain showed up and literally made it rain on their parade. The rain was enchanted, so it was causing problems and not just like rain, because I can assure you, regular rain would have meant nothing to an LGBTQ community parade. All it would have caused is for someone to start playing Rain on Me by Lady Gaga in a party. The comic itself, it's funny, plain and simple, I laughed. Extrano refers to the team as his JLQ kick line at one point. No notes, loved it, happy belated Pride Month team. Naomi McDuffie has crash landed into the DC universe. Literally, she is a teenage superhero disaster in a good way. Naomi is not from Earth. She is from some other undetermined alternate Earth. She ends up on the main Earth though. Naomi's Earth was subject to too much pollution and the ozone layer collapsed. When that happened, radiation started appearing. It was harmless to almost everyone except 29 specific people. They all got superpowers. Some of the 29 were bad people, some were good. They end up fighting each other. Naomi was not one of these heroes, but her mom was. When Naomi was born, the evilest of the 29 wanted her out of the picture, so to save her, she was sent to Earth and adopted by the McDuffies. Growing up, she thought she was normal, well, as normal as a teen with transformation energy powers can be. In addition to energy manipulation, she can also fly, create portals, is physically enhanced, and heals very quickly. She needs to be able to heal quickly considering she fights barefoot, which is such a choice, but go off. After fighting with the villain of her world and losing, she goes to look for help. Crashing into a hot dog stand outside the Daily Planet, Superman is more than willing to assist. He calls him Batman because Batman has experience with troubled teens. Eventually, Naomi finds her place on Earth, taking the name Powerhouse and becoming affiliated with the Justice League and Young Justice. Every day I miss Justicia, the Justice League of Mexico. Justicia is Spanish for justice, so it's pretty on the nose with that one. The team first appeared in Suicide Squad, Most Wanted, El Diablo, and Amanda Waller 5 and 6. A few team members were in some Superman comics, and that's literally it. The team leader is El Dorado. He's Mexican Superman. He can fly, he's strong, he also teleports and does minor telepathy. There are 3 other members on the team, Akrada, a skilled martial artist, and acrobat capable of teleportation due to the Mayan artifact she wears. Then we have El Muerto, he's undead, which makes him hard to kill. And finally, we have Iman, he wears a suit of armor that gives him superior strength. Other than the name, there are direct connections between Justicia and the Justice League. El Muerto idolizes Superman, and Iman received a scholarship from Wayne Enterprises. Each individual hero has had a handful of appearances, but the whole team has 2. I think they are neat and should get more chances to show off together. Up next is Master Cola, better known as Insight, and that name is very fitting, of course, and I will tell you why. Insight's original occupation was information thief, but then Supergirl caught him and helped him get it together. After a brief stint in jail, he decided to use his thievery skills for good. He was going to steal the data from the Department of Extra Normal Operations that exposed their shady behavior because he believed the public deserved to know. It's a tall order to fulfill, but he managed to get it done. He built himself some hero armor and infused his blood with nanotech. The nanotech would interface with his skeleton, which he cybernetically enhanced, as well as any wireless signal it would interface with too. He let himself be arrested by the DEO so that once inside the base, the nanotech in him would activate. This would lead to the systems being hacked and the info being gathered. Upon escape, Insight was able to take this information and load it into a database to be shared, exposing all that corruption. Insight becomes affiliated with the Justice League through the Justice Foundation, and that is a superhero think tank founded to improve humankind through the creation and application of innovative technologies and advancements in medicine. He got his dream job. Another DC character that I recently became obsessed with and want to steal their life is Eternal Knight. She was once one of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, and now in the present day was part of Justice League Dark. So she's immortal and she is really good at sword fighting. She was the 13th Knight, but instead of being allowed in battle, she was assigned to watch Excalibur in the water the Lady of the Lake probably existed in. She wanted to go to battle, but she had babysitting duty. She is released from babysitting by Merlin's betrayal, so she sets out to stop him. Along the way, she meets Batman and the two work together briefly. Eternal Knight has a really cool suit of armor made of 9th metal. She joins the Justice League Dark in 2021, helping them in their battle against Merlin. Up next is Justice League Odyssey. They sound cool because they are. JLO was created for the Ghost Sector to clean it up and maintain order there. After Dark Knight's Metal and Justice League No Justice were over, the Ghost Sector showed up and no one really knew what it was. And you know what that means? Time to assemble a team to check it out. Justice League Odyssey. The team is made up of Azariel, Starfire, Cyborg, and Jessica Cruz's Green Lantern. Many fans of this series praise Cruz as a high point of the series, finding her story very compelling. Jessica doesn't actually start out with the team. She was already in the Ghost Sector, assigned there by the Green Lanterns to patrol the area. It's during one of her patrols that she finds the team. The story follows the JLO as they aim to help the planets that exist in the Ghost Sector. The planets are being held captive, and to add on to that, Darkseid is gunning to take over the multiverse, so there is a lot happening, but it's a fun read. And finally, Alan Scott. The Earth's first Green Lantern has gotten a pretty stellar revamp. Alan Scott has been around since the 40s, but disappeared after the big thing, the big reset, but made his triumphant return in 2018. Scott's life took place in the 19 years. He joined the army in 1936. Scott was gay, and while in the army, he fell in love with a fellow engineer, Johnny Ladd. It was going really well until Johnny was seemingly eliminated by a burst of crimson energy from the ocean. He wasn't. It turns out Johnny was actually a Soviet agent whose mission was to get the Crimson Flame for Russia. I mean, he did get it and became the Red Lantern. Imagine having to fight your evil ex-boyfriend like this. Anyway, after Johnny died, Alan was discharged from the military because they didn't approve of the relationship. Alan wasn't doing well and checked himself into Arkham Asylum to be cured, which is very sad, but he met a woman there named Billy who carved him a lantern as a present. When Alan escaped, he took this lantern and jumped onto a train. On that train was his next boyfriend, train conductor Jimmy. They would hang out on the train together during Jimmy's shifts, but then one night, the train went over a bridge that blew up. So the train blew up and everybody died. But Alan, because what is a superhero without immeasurable amount of trauma, the reason Alan survived was the lantern from Billy. It started emitting a green light, healed Alan's wounds, and boom, now the Earth has Green Lantern. Alan joined the Justice Society of America. Then there was a moment where he was written out of history and then written back in, then had to deal with time travelers. Alan's been through a lot. Let's give him a break. Up first is Hank McCoy's clone, Henry. Everybody has a clone in the Marvel Universe. If you don't, you have one coming or assume you're just not important enough. Beast's clone, Henry Philip McCoy, no Hank for simplicity's sake, debuted this year in January in X-Force 48. Beast is in his evil era right now. He got his blue claws on a bit too much power and has lost the plot a little. He betrayed everyone and created a bunch of clones of himself to help his research along. There was a battle with Wolverine and almost all of Beast's clones were destroyed, except of course Henry. X-Force leader Sage secretly saved Henry and kept him hidden away until he was needed. Beast somehow got worse, and X-Force was like, it's time, the only thing that can handle Beast is Beast. So they downloaded Beast's backup in Cerebro from a few years ago when he was still a good guy. Henry is a little scared at first. I cannot blame him for that. He finds out what the real Beast is doing and his world is rocked. He finds Wonder Man and the pair go after Hank. They find him with a black hole gun underwater because he is trying to suck Arakko into a black hole for safekeeping. Why didn't I think of that? Hank and Henry fight. Wolverine also ends up joining in because he's everywhere. Throughout this fight, Henry is trying to convince Hank to be a better person, and it eventually works. The black hole gun was already hot to go, so Hank sacrificed himself and was sent away by his own machine. Then Henry moved in with Wonder Man, which could mean nothing. Since this Beast is a clone with almost all of Beast's memories, we can only assume he has all of Beast's power and intellect too. Thank you so much to the person that was like, you know what we need? Space Spider-Man, because we did need Space Spider-Man. I like to have fun, why not? Persephone Parker is Star Spider. She is also the coolest and I love her suit. She is from Earth 1978 and debuted in Edge of Spider-Verse 3 in April. She lives in the space station Bronx because that's where her family is from. She is on the station because she is working as an apprentice to Professor Osborn as they study quantum engineering. Persephone is quite sneaky. She is secretly dating Osborn's daughter and also secretly is a space superhero. She utilizes the spiders on the ship, but they are not actual spiders. They are nanobots that use a special tech. They are what form Persephone's cool outfit. Spider stands for sanitation, planning, integrated defense, and engineering robots. Star Spider's biggest fight so far was against Octavius and the Kree army that were trying to invade the station. And speaking of Octavius, I can't believe they made Doc Ock scarier than he already is. As Doc Ock, he is creepy in a way only a deranged man with tentacles coming out of his back can be, but in the Space Spider-Verse story, those tentacles are organic, like mouths, and they have teeth. He's also purple and has bug eyes, but I got the shock of my life reading further, and I come to see that he actually just has like a blue octopus attached to his back like a parasitic backpack. The tentacles are pretty useful in a fight, I will admit. In addition to the teeth, they can also grab with their claws. Octavius nearly wins the fight, but he ends up breaking Star Spider's arm, but she is able to defeat him thanks to the nano spider bots. Octavius ends up disappearing before Star Spider can get the final hit in, but he promises they will meet again. This next character is so unbelievably cute, I can't take it. His name is Walpurgis, and he's Agatha Harkness's cat's kitten. So Agatha's cat Ebony had a kitten named Walpurgis. Agatha wanted to recruit Brielle Brooks as an apprentice due to her talent, but she refused. No hard feelings. Agatha had maybe the perfect response and gifted Brielle Walpurgis. This is my dream scenario. Not much is known about the kitten other than it is most likely a magic kitten and it's purple and it's cute. The kitten debuted in Marvel's Voices Infinity Comic 96 in April. We have another spider kid in the house, but this one is less fun. Boy Spider dropped in February of this year in Spider-Boy 4. He was a clone of Spider-Boy, designed to be a bit more of like the monster side of him. Spider-Boy has a monster form, but Boy Spider is in that monster form all the time. He was created by Madame Monstrosity. She's also a recent debut from August of last year, and she does a lot of genetic research inspired by the High Evolutionary, so you can kind of guess her vibe. She let this evil boy spider clone loose around the city with absolutely no morals built into that body. He started ruining lives really quick, and specifically ruining Spider-Boy's life and reputation in the city. Boy Spider ends up finding Spider-Man, Miles is Spider-Man, and the two fight. Eventually, Spider-Boy and Peter show up, and Spider-Boy is able to have a heart-to-heart with his clone. The clone relaxes and goes home. That makes it sound like really tame. I promise there was drama, but also this is so new that I don't want to spoil the twist ending quite yet. Boy Spider has a more threatening look to him. Spider-Boy is just kind of like this cute kid, this cute little costume running around the city. Boy Spider has multiple eyes, spider legs on his back, pinchers, claws, a furry patch on his back. He's just a scarier kid overall. Boy Spider shows that he has pretty much every power Spider-Boy has, including a venomous bite and the ability to speak in a spider language. The first comic in a Miss Marvel Mutant Menace gave us the gift of a new villain, hopefully later mutant, anti-hero, or even hero, the Planter. He looks like the mascot for Green Giant Green Beans, simply because his skin is green and he wears a cape of leaves. The Planter is a mutant on Earth 616, and he takes on the qualities of any plant he touches. He touches a rose, and he would grow thorns. The Planter decides to use his abilities to rob jewelry stores across Jersey City, because that is a victimless crime, because jewelry stores have insurance, at least that's what the Planter thinks. The first big use of his power that we see is him making a getaway by making a big helicopter seed grow out of his back. It worked. It's hinted that the Planter has the potential to join the good side, but the comics are still coming out, so we will have to wait and see. New demigod villain just dropped in February's Miles Morales Spider-Man 17. Zip Zephyr is a menace drenched in the sweat of Theseus and has an enchanted bag that blows air, and that's him. I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. As far as I'm aware, Zip was kind of like the intro villain for a comic. He's there for a good time, not a long time. Miles, Miss Marvel, and Shift were fighting this guy in Brooklyn. We get thrown into the middle of the fight, pretty much, so it's unclear why Zip is doing all of this, personally, I think for fun. Zip is probably from ancient Greece because he says he bathed in the sweat of Theseus, which makes him really slippery, which makes him really fast. He is also too slippery for webs to stick to him. The other thing Zip has going for him is his bag. It blows powerful bursts of air. I think Miles summed up everyone's feelings about this when he said, "A bag of wind? What is even going on right now?" Zip gets KO'd by Shift and presumably arrested. No amount of Theseus' sweat is going to help him slip out of that one. You can tell Marvel writers were having fun when they created the Circus of Crime. The Circus of Crime debuted in January in Doctor Strange 11. There are 4 people in this circus, they are all goofy. Up first is our Ring Mistress. Ring Mistress takes after her father, Ring Master. Their thing is they wear purple and green and commit the majority of their crimes by hypnotizing people, using the device in their top hat, then robbing them. This Circus of Crime had plans to go when no Circus of Crime had gone before and make the hypnosis device massive in a big Ferris wheel. Ring Mistress has rounded out her circus with all the performer types that one would want to see. We have an acrobat named Gymnasty. Think of like an average skilled acrobat. She's that, but with the drive to crush you. Then we have Stefano Stiletto. He is a knife thrower. And then finally we have the strongman of the group with the most incredible name, Chief Beef. He used science to create the ultimate bulking routine and diet, so he is very, very strong. The circus is so funny to look at, and I'm glad we got another version of it. Nafeel, also maybe known as Frozen Charlotte, is Lucifer's wife. She debuted in Incredible Hulk 9 in February. She is one of those characters that has really good intentions, but the worst possible way of executing them. She wants to make sure good people, innocent people, are protected from the world, but also from demons and bad entities and eventually her own husband Lucifer in the underworld. She wants to make sure innocent souls were protected. She did do that, I guess. What she does is take these people's souls and trap them in vessels designed to outlive the human body so the soul never has to go to the underworld. The vessels, they look like these little statues, so she traps people against their will in these action figures. Right idea, wrong methods. When Lucifer failed to beat God, he was exiled from heaven and his wife was too. Lucifer went to the underworld, but Charlotte chose to hide out on Earth, which resulted in her being hunted by angels and devils for thousands of years. I am sorry to say, but she does have the look of someone who has been on the run and married to the devil. She is literally skin and bones and 4 stories tall minimum with spikes on her. She wears a veil over her face. She can't appear as a human, typically an old woman. That's how she finds her victims. And you can tell she's going devil mode when her eyes white out. She did end up fighting the Hulk, and that fight caught the attention of Lucifer, who then took his wife away. But she was happy to go with him. She is capable of some level of energy blasts, and she has wings and all the powers that come with being a divine and also demonic being, so she's pretty cool. Earth 66 has been around for almost 2 years now. It started as a one-off Earth, but they keep popping in every once in a while, which is nice because this Earth is the Spider-Man but make them dinosaurs Earth. I like to see what Spider-Rex is up to because he is very cool. This year in May, they introduced a new villain for Spider-Rex, Lizard. An actual lizard, not a man in a suit this time. When Spider-Rex was saving the day once, he stepped on Lizard's tail and ripped it off. From that point forward, Lizard decided Spider-Rex would pay. Spider-Rex got his powers from a rock that merges 2 life forms when they make contact. Lizard planned to use a small piece of this rock to come into contact with Spider-Rex and then get his tail back. However, it went so wrong, he ended up touching a bunch of other animals first, eventually becoming an ape, piranha, capybara, turtle, pterodactyl, brachiosaurus, crocodile monster mix. Truly, it could not have gone worse for him. He does end up super powerful, which is like the bright side here, I guess. He uses the rock to turn Spider-Rex's girlfriend into a human, and humans are ugly in this world. It ends with MJ and Lizard Monster making contact with each other, and MJ turns back to normal, and Lizard becomes an ugly human named Kurt. And that's how humanity was started.
First appearing in Avengers Volume 6, Number 0 in October of 2015, US Army Corporal Todd Ziller was the test subject of a procedure by Project Troubleshooter, America's latest attempt to recreate the super soldier serum. As you may be aware, this rarely goes well for anyone. In this case, the gaps of knowledge in Abraham Erskine's serum were replaced by gamma enhancements, mutant growth hormone, PIM particles, and Dr. Kurt Connor's lizard formula, because those have all been absolute winners in the past. Now this cobbled together serum coursing through Ziller's body turned him into a giant reptile very similar to Godzilla, for which he was given the alias of American Kaiju. He's basically Godzilla with an American flag painted on the top of his head. Now he was unleashed and attacked Avengers Island after Avengers Idea Mechanics tried to rescue Rick Jones from S.H.I.E.L.D. custody. This led American Kaiju to do battle with Avenger 5, basically a giant robot. Yes, it was pretty awesome, I'm not gonna lie. But next up, first introduced in the Sins of Sinister timeline, John Ironfire became so damn popular that he made it into the Earth 616 timeline. Ironfire is a mutant from Morocco with the power to turn his blood into metal that he can then control. In one of his first appearances, Ironfire uses his powers to create metal claws, kind of like Wolverine, but his abilities are so much more than just making claws. Ironfire can use his power to create horns, armor, and he's even created molten bullets that he shoots at enemies. During Sins of Sinister, he serves as a right-hand man to Storm in her Brotherhood and lives hundreds of years into the future, eventually looking a lot like Odin, if I'm honest. After the conclusion of Sins of Sinister, he arrives in the main 616 continuity, where it's revealed that he is a member of the White Sword's 100 Champions, an army that basically wages an eternal battle in the lands of Amenth. Ironfire is the last of these warriors, arriving on Morocco with the White Sword's blade, Purity. He warns the Iraqi mutants that Genesis, the wife of Apocalypse, is coming to conquer the planet, and he stands with them in battle. He's pretty cool. Mark Spector became the Fist of Khonshu when he was chosen by Khonshu himself and was given the moniker of Moon Knight. Now years and years later, however, in Moon Knight Volume 9, Number 1 from July 2021, Mark learned that Khonshu actually has two hands, and therefore two fists. And the second one was Dr. Yahya Badir. Originally someone who didn't believe in higher deities, Yahya was attacked by vampires and left for dead when he met the Egyptian moon god Khonshu. He was then saved and became a worshipper of Khonshu known as Hunter's Moon, the god's second high priest and opposite of Moon Knight. After Moon Knight refused to worship Khonshu but appropriated his mission, establishing the Midnight Mission, Hunter's Moon moved to his territory and took over a free clinic in the neighborhood in order to keep watch over Moon Knight, intending to correct the vigilante whom he believed had strayed away from Khonshu's purpose. Hunter's Moon has all the memories of the previous characters who became Khonshu's Moon Knight, making him one of Marvel's best hand-to-hand fighters. He eventually began working as Spectre's ally at the Midnight Mission, and I highly suggest you read that volume of Moon Knight to learn more. Debuting in Powers of X Number 1, which released in early 2019, Rasputin 4 is one of the more interesting recent additions to the X-Men, but she's also one of the most overpowered. Created as possibly the most powerful of Mr. Sinister's chimeras, which were basically spliced together mutants who possessed more than one hero's power, Rasputin 4 possesses 5 powers. She has the osmium metal skin of Colossus, the telekinesis and telepathy of Quentin Quire, the force fields of Gunther Bane aka Eunice the Untouchable, the intangibility of Kitty Pryde, and just to top it all off, she has the healing factor of X-23 Laura Kinney, or basically Wolverine. So as you can imagine, she is a force to be reckoned with, and on top of that, she wields the Soul Sword. Currently, as far as I've read, Rasputin 4 is working pretty closely with Charles Xavier to fight back against Orchis and others during the fall of X. While she was initially controlled by Sinister, he himself undid that, and together the two actually saved the universe, with Rasputin doing most of the heavy lifting if we're being honest. More recently in the Fall of X event, she was called away by Professor X to join the crew of No Place X, venturing into the alternate timelines created by the Moira engine, hoping to wipe out Mr. Sinister clones in each one before they could become Dominions and to prevent the Enigma from ever existing. Next up, the character of Scarlet Scarab has been around for a long time in Marvel Comics, like since the 1970s. But the latest hero to carry the mantle is pretty unique in that she first debuted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Layla El-Fayouli first appeared in the Moon Knight Disney Plus series with Oscar Isaac as an adventurer and the wife of Mark Spector. In the series' final episode, she becomes an avatar of the Egyptian goddess of women and children known as Taweret. Layla gained the ability to fly using those sweet golden wings, as well as superhuman strength and agility. Now, because of how popular her character in the show became, Layla's Scarlet Scarab made her debut in the actual comics in Moon Knight number 25 in July 2023. Similar to her origins in the show, she becomes an avatar of Taweret and reveals herself as the new Scarlet Scarab to Mark when he travels to the underworld, as Layla lost her life on a mission after becoming romantically involved with Mark Spector. Losing Layla was actually a factor that led Mark down a path that would eventually make him assume the mantle of Moon Knight, making her now, retroactively, tied to his comic book origin story. Now, maybe this next point is kind of cheating, but I'm making the entire new Ultimate Universe my next point. The Ultimate Universe used to be one of the most popular parts of Marvel Comics' publishing line. The Ultimate Universe was ended in the aftermath of Secret Wars, but alas, Jonathan Hickman has returned to bring the universe back to life with the miniseries Ultimate Invasion. Considering the current popularity of the multiverse concept, reviving Marvel's Ultimate Universe is a move long overdue, and Jonathan Hickman is definitely the perfect choice to script it. There's plenty of payoffs for those up to date with current Marvel continuity, as the evil alternate universe Reed Richards, also known as the Maker, who originated in the Ultimate Universe, escapes into a parallel dimension where he influences events through time to remake this universe into what he wants it to be. There are fresh takes on characters like Spider-Man, Black Panther, Tony Stark, Reed Richards, Thor, and many, many more. But this new universe also has completely original characters, like a lot of the ones currently making up the Ultimate X-Men created by Peach Momoko. Moving on, 1500 years ago in Baghdad, a group of rampaging monsters known as the Army of the Devil was banished and bound to ordinary objects by the sorcerer known as Red Owl. At the moment of his passing, Red Owl then sent the monster's cursed artifacts across the globe. On that day, Fadi Fadlalah's ancestors pledged to find the 1,000 cursed items and seal them away, and this duty was passed down through the generations, falling on Fadi's shoulders when he was a teenager, turning him into the superhero Amulet. Amulet first debuted in Magnificent Miss Marvel number 13 from March of 2020 in Jersey City when one of the demons of the Army of the Devil surfaced at a fair in Sussex County. Now, as you might have guessed, Amulet teamed up with Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, destroying the artifact and banishing the monster. Now, he has teamed up with Kamala a few other times, but also with Miles Morales' Spider-Man, all while fighting and banishing more of these demons. Amulet essentially has the power to conjure Nazar's shields, which can vary in size, are powered and enhanced by love, can be used offensively, and even be used as platforms for Fadi to walk on air, similar to what Kamala did in the MCU TV show. Coming to us from Marvel's Voices Infinity Comic number 100 from May of this year, 2024, Jun Sung Justin Jin is Kid Juggernaut. And if that is causing you to go, wait, what? Yeah, exactly. Justin here is the son of Jin Jung Woo, who in turn is the son of Jin Moon Ho, who we learn was the Juggernaut before even Kane Marco had the job. After Moon Ho gained the powers of Sidorak, he was forced to join the Japanese Imperial forces who were occupying Korea at that time. And when Sidorak ordered Moon Ho to attack his own village, Moon Ho refused and the power went to Kane Marco, who then took the life of Moon Ho. Now, when Justin was 17 years old, his father mysteriously passed away and Justin received his belongings, which included a fragment of the Crimson Gem of Sidorak. After making contact with the artifact, Justin was given the powers of the Juggernaut. Justin learned his family history with the gem from his mother, who witnessed the transformation into Juggernaut, and how his father refused to take the powers out of shame. Justin and his mother were then confronted by Malfagor, a follower of Sidorak who wished to acquire the power of the Juggernaut for himself and had taken the life of Justin's father looking for the gem. Justin and Malfagor battled in the streets of Vancouver until Dr. Stephen Strange intervened to help rescue Justin, and he eventually joined Avengers Academy. In our runner-up spot, those heroes who have taken up the name Jackpot have not had the greatest of luck, which is kind of funny. It goes without saying that the Jackpot name is not new, with the first being Alana Jobson, who appeared back in 2008. The first Jackpot is now nowhere to be found, and the second met her demise under its moniker, but the third time's the charm, and the third time, the moniker of Jackpot fell to none other than Mary Jane Watson. Mary Jane debuted as Jackpot in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 6, number 31 from August of 2023. Mary Jane basically became trapped in an alternate dimension with a man named Paul Rabin, and while only a few days passed in the real world, for them it was actually several years, leading them to grow close, adopt 2 children, and develop a slot machine device that generates random superpowers for MJ. After returning from the dimension, eventually Black Cat encourages MJ to lean into her new powers and become a superhero. Mary Jane then adopts the name Jackpot, which is actually also a callback to the very first words she ever said to Peter Parker. "Face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot." Pretty cool. And lastly, Marvel's new Gods series has been teased for months with backup stories in the pages of various Marvel Comics titles, giving us glimpses into what's happening and the premise of the story. Now, it's done. Each of the story's key players has shown up in these back pages, including what seems to be the main player, a guy called Wynn, also known as Sir Redwyn. Wynn is the avatar of the powers that be, an ancient entity or group that ultimately oversees all things strange and magical in Marvel Comics. Wynn received the role of Avatar over a millennium ago and has served faithfully in safeguarding the universe, without any of us knowing somehow. Thanks to his long life and his knack for always landing in hot water, he knows how to get himself out of a tight spot, even as he begrudgingly performs his obligatory duties. Now, I've seen him often compared to DC's Constantine, and I think that's actually somewhat accurate, especially in his personality. Wynn's position as the avatar of the powers that be is only one half of the overarching mythology introduced in the Gods comics, and he's the direct opposite of the powers that be are the natural order of things, and they oversee all things pure and scientific. Rather than having a single representative in the form of an avatar, like Wynn, the natural order of things is represented by 100 immortal individuals who comprise the Centum, and one of them is Wynn's wife, Eiko Maki.
Prodigy is a newer character who also happened to be one of the newest recruits to the main X-Men team at the last Hellfire Gala. Yeah, that didn't work out so well. He made his first appearance back in the 2003 New Mutants series in issue number 4, and would go on to join up with the new X-Men, become a leader for the younger X-Men on Utopia, serve as a member of the Young Avengers, and eventually come back around to Krakoa, serving as a member of X-Factor before eventually getting elected to join the X-Men, just in time for the roster to be brutally destroyed. Prodigy is known as David Lane. He is cool, but honestly pretty squishy. His mutant powers allow him to subconsciously absorb the knowledge and skills of those around him while they are in his vicinity. He did, however, gain back past knowledge he'd had at one point thanks to the Stepford Cuckoos, which ended up elevating him to super genius status, putting him on a similar level to some of the most brilliant minds in all of the Marvel Universe. Who do you think is the smartest person in the Marvel Universe, by the way? Let us know down in the comments. Also, stick around to the end of this video because I got a crazy thing I'm gonna tell you about. It's crazy, trust me. Most people would never think of Miss Marvel inherently when they think of X-Men. Until, maybe, now that is. Kamala was recently made an Inhuman and mutant hybrid in the comics, where after her death and resurrection, it was established that she possessed an X gene kind of long dormant, which had now been activated by her resurrection. Some folks were not fans of this change, but honestly, it is oddly more in line with the creators of the character's wishes for her when they made her. Initially, Kamala was designed with the origin of mutant in mind, but as Marvel did not have the rights for X-Men at that time, they instead wanted to make her an Inhuman as part of a push to make, the Inhumans as popular, if not more so, than the mutants. And with Kamala being established as the first mutant in the MCU, Marvel decided to change her origin in the comics as well. As such, Kamala also recently joined up with the X-Men, eager to see what her mutant power set would be when it manifested, but also struggling to process the hate that mutants deal with on a daily basis. Rasputin 4 is an interesting mutant who actually has had 2 different first appearances, but both of them were pretty recent. Technically, these were different versions of the same character though. Rasputin initially appeared during Moira McTaggart's 9th life, but also appears during Sins of Sinister in an alternate timeline created by Sinister using Moira's mutant powers. While in the 9th life of Moira back in the Dawn of X days, Rasputin ends up dying, the version who exists in Sinister's created timeline from Sins of Sinister actually makes her way to Earth 616 and ends up in the main main continuity, teaming up with the X-Men there. Rasputin is a chimera who is created by Sinister and who possesses as such the combined powers, abilities, and genes of Colossus, Quentin Quire's Kid Omega, Unis the Untouchable, Kitty Pryde, and Laura Kinney, aka Talon or Wolverine, whichever you prefer. Armor is the main character of the Ultimate X-Men series. She is known there simply as Hisako Ichiki, the same name as Armor's in the mainline comics. At the beginning of the series, she is set to graduate middle school, but we learn that she has not been attending class in the lead up to her graduation due to the sudden loss of her friend Tsubasa. Tsubasa was mistreated by the other students and struggled in school as a result. However, Hisako did not really know just how haunted Tsubasa was by this and was surprised when it was revealed that he'd later taken his own life. From this dark beginning, we are launched into the series and follow along with Hisako, who pulls on the thread of the origins of the mysterious being who appears to claim to avenge Tsubasa, known as Shadow or the Shadow, likely a version of the Shadow King, all while uncovering that Hisako herself has her own secret. She seems to be a mutant with superpowers that she struggles to understand and also struggles to control. Storm may have been around for a good long while in the comics, but this version of the character is completely new. She made her first appearance earlier this year in Ultimate Black Panther in issue number 1. Here, Aurora Monroe is a mutant with power over the elements known as Wind Rider. She fights against Khonshu and Ra alongside her partner and her lover, Killmonger. However, while Wind Rider is with Killmonger here, there is a prophecy involving her that tells of her destiny to deliver the heir to Wakanda, seemingly alongside the King T'Challa. So we'll have to see how that goes. Mae Storm is my favorite, I think, of the new Ultimate X-Men characters. Mae Storm is clearly inspired by Storm, but really does seem to be her own character. She actually first appeared as one of the new Champions variant covers that we got, appearing on the cover of X-Men issue number 27, where she was drawn and designed by Peach Momoko. As part of that project, Mae was created to basically be a Storm protege. All the variants were designed as such, with younger takes on characters being showcased, so we can imagine what sort of sidekick for said character would be like. I think that's what I like most about Mae. While inspired by Storm, she also feels fully original in terms of her characterization, and is a very different person from the original Storm from the comics. Doubly so in Mae's case, who exists in the same universe as Ultimate Earth 6160 Storm, aka Wind Rider, but who, like I said, is, I just feel, very different. When it comes to Ultimate X-Men issue number 3, we actually get to meet a few new and exciting characters. Chiefly among the new mutants that we're meeting here are a group who also seem to be mutants, but who are not connected to Mae Storm or even to Armor. Other than the fact that, I guess, well, they all happen to be in the same class. I wonder if also them being in the same class is by someone's design. Among this group is Mori. Mori is believed to be a mutant, but it's still very early days in terms of the mystery of her character and that of Ultimate X-Men in general, to be honest. When it comes to Mori, she appears to be an alternate version of Molly Hayes, which would make sense considering some of the other characters featured here and their mainline connection to the Runaways team. In the main continuity, Molly's mutant power is that she has super strength, and she's actually considered even to be one of the strongest characters in Marvel. With Mori, we're not as certain of her powers or if she's really even an alternate version of Molly just yet, but of course time will tell. If she is Molly, I gotta say, I am loving the Runaways inspiration that seems to be kind of mixed in throughout here. For some reason, Natsu gives me Kitty Pryde vibes, but it's actually believed that she might be an alternate to Scott Summers' Cyclops in the Ultimate X-Men series and universe of Earth 6160. People suspect this of Natsu because of her name, which means summer, as in, you know, summers perhaps, and because she has one red eye, which is concealed by an eye patch. Some have also compared her character design to that of Scott's, seeing some similarities and cues even in the tracksuit that she wears here, which people are likening to Scott's look. Natsu just made her first appearance, so we'll have to wait and see what role she will play in this very different X-Men series and team. This is a really interesting one. Nico Minoru of Earth 6160 makes her first appearance in Ultimate X-Men issue number 3, and seems to vary quite a bit from her Earth 616 main continuity counterpart, while also bearing some similarities there. Now in the main line, Nico is known for being a human who was born into a family of dark magic users who regularly performed ritual sacrifices. She ends up joining up with the Runaways and decides to rebel against her parents' plans for her, instead becoming a hero and force for good. foreign. In Ultimate, however, she instead seems to be another mutant who can detect others. At least that's what seems to be implied here. She also seems to have a magical air about her, and it's rumored that her parents are also tied to the supernatural in some way. So it's possible this version of Nico could be a magic user and a mutant as well. I mean, it definitely feels like it's a variation on the character. What's so interesting about Surge in Ultimate X-Men is that we don't really know what her motivation is or who she is working for yet, if anyone. She might just be doing her own thing. All we know is that Surge in this reality seems to be interested in exposing mutants, or at least one mutant out there in particular, and that is Hisako, who we know better in terms of her main continuity counterpart as Armor. That being said, it seems that Surge herself is a mutant, likely inspired by the mutant of the same name in the comics. Like her 616 counterpart, she seems to be able to harness the power of electricity, but unlike her 616 counterpart, this version of Surge seems to kind of have a better initial handle on her powers, not seemingly needing the gauntlets we're used to seeing her with in regards to her 616 version. I honestly can't wait to see what else we can learn about Surge as time goes on, and if she herself will get her own issue focused solely on her, kinda like how we had with May as well. Iska is the sister-in-law to Apocalypse, being the sister of his wife, Genesis. Also, yes, Apocalypse has a wife. Iska's mutant ability is probably one of the coolest out there, in a similar vein, but even more impressive seemingly, than Domino's luck ability. Iska's power is that she can never lose. She was one of the chosen champions of Araco who competed in the Otherworld tournament in Ten of Swords, and of course, won against her competitor, the current Captain Britain, Betsy Braddock. Her power, however, seemingly forced her to change sides in the war between the mutants of Araco, her home world, her home island, I guess I should say, and the demons of Amenth, led by Annihilation. She abandoned the mutants of Araco, joining up with the Amenthi due to the fact that the mutants were kinda on the losing side, and her power, of course, prevents her from ever losing. You have no choice when that's your power. While Punchline might be kinda new on the scene, she did go toe-to-toe with Harley Quinn, herself known for being a pretty deadly and unstoppable villain when she wants to be, so it's pretty impressive that when it came to Punchline versus Harley Quinn, Punchline came out on top. Punchline sliced Harley Quinn's throat and left her for dead in the sewers below Gotham during Joker War, but of course, Harley would recover. She got better. Still, Punchline's victory was surprising for her being such a new and unseasoned character and baddie, so I think we learned then that she is a force to be reckoned with, and it's definitely a character for us to keep an eye on. I also feel like Alexis K's backstory, which was explored in one of the stories featured in the Joker 80th Anniversary 100-page Super Spectacular, was really fascinating. I do hope we get to explore her character more because I think her anarchistic nature and her outlook on the world are actually quite interesting. Punchline seems to enjoy fighting with stiletto daggers and dreaming up her own deadly brews of poison, even creating her own special brew of Joker venom for Batman, which gave him his own pretty awful trip during Joker War. You know you're in the future when you're recruiting a whole city to your cause. That is exactly what happened here with the Impossible City. The Impossible City was initially used as a base for a group of multiversal superheroes. Who was this group of multiversal superheroes? We don't currently know, but what we do know is after they left their base, seemingly for good for some reason, their prisoners escaped. This villainous troop, who had been trapped here, was known as the Ashen Combine. The Ashen Combine would then make the city their own base, and it would provide the backdrop for their final stand against the Avengers. When the Ashen Combine was defeated, the Impossible City actually offered to join up with the Avengers team. Oh yeah, the Impossible City is also aptly named because it is a sentient and living city as well. The Avengers accepted the offer, and as such the Impossible City was introduced as both the base for and a team member and ally to the Avengers team. Pretty cool. Oh my goodness, because this list is titled characters, I can actually include side characters who are just usually normal, non-powered and non-villainous folks as well. Well, I mean kinda normal, they do still exist in comics, so you know, but yay! Jeff Bannister is an ally and later friend of Wolverine's and a CIA agent who first appeared in Benjamin Percy's Wolverine series in issue number 1 and has appeared here and there throughout that series in spots. He teamed up with Wolverine to learn the source of and put a stop to a deadly new hallucinogen that had surfaced called the pollen. Together, he and Wolverine tracked down the Flower Cartel and the Pale Girl, who was initially thought to be a shared hallucination brought on by this substance. Though we later learned learn that she was actually a real person. Hey. Jeff Bannister also has a daughter who suffers from cancer, or who suffered from cancer. After Bannister worked with and befriended Wolverine, Logan was actually able to help his daughter by getting her immediate access to the Krakoan medicines, which of course helped to cure her. Yay! Logan also gifted Bannister a Krakoan gate following their adventure together. Cute. You know me? I love a bromance. Just like Superman has Mr. Mixius Pitalik and Batman has Batmite, Dick Grayson, the superhero known as Nightwing, now has his own imp superfan from the 5th dimension, known as Dixel. Though Dixel prefers to be known, of course, as Nightmite. Well, it might seem strange, I would say that Dixel is actually kind of also like a superhero at this point. He is an imp from the 5th dimension, he is a bit mischievous, but ultimately he is genuinely well-meaning and helpful, unlike most other imps who are much more mischievous or just downright troublesome, to be honest. Being an imp from the 5th dimension also means that Dixel can be super powerful, as he has magical reality bending and reality warping powers. Nightmite made his first appearance in the comics in issue number 98 of Nightwing back in late 2022, so he's still a pretty new character who hasn't made a ton of appearances yet. Genesis is a pretty important character who apparently has always existed, but who we never really knew about until recently. She made her first full appearance in the 2019 run of X-Men back in issue number 12. We would learn that she was the wife of Apocalypse, who was long ago lost to her husband, who ended up leaving another mutant island nation known as Arakko, the other half, it turns out, of Krakoa, because they used to once be joined together and were known as Okara. Genesis is a strong warrior and an all-around badass. Basically, pretty much exactly what you'd expect Apocalypse's wife to be like. She also happens to be a mother, as it turns out that Apocalypse and Genesis together had a whole family of strong, also badass, and scary mutant children. When I was first introduced to him, I would have never thought I would ever include this character on a list like this. But over time, I actually came to be a pretty big fan, even though I still think his name is pretty ridiculous. But I miss him. Ghostmaker, initially in the comics, is a mysterious vigilante who seeks to usurp Batman as a protector of Gotham. But we would later come to know him as Min-Kwa Khan, one of the best friends and best rivals Batman has ever had. Wayne met Khan when the two were younger and both on their own separate journeys, training to become masterful vigilantes, each for their own separate reasons. While Batman has stayed in Gotham his whole life, his purpose for becoming a hero tied to the city, and of course the trauma that he experienced there, Ghostmaker actually travels the world, seemingly acting as a vigilante because of how much he prides himself on his feats and his accomplishments. Ghostmaker is often shown to be a psychopath, seemingly not capable of feeling any empathy for the people he saves, and motivated solely by pushing himself to the unimaginable. At least that's how he likes to advertise himself. However, we learn in the conclusion of one of his backstories featured in Batman Annual 2021 that he may actually have a more personal connection to vigilantism than he lets on. You should check out that whole backstory that leads up to that annual, it's really good. Katie, or Ruin Chen, is probably one of my favorite new characters in the MCU, if not just my full-on favorite now. Definitely of the normal people allies. Katie is the best friend of Sean and grew up with him, but later learns that her friend Sean has a complicated past that he has been running from for years. And in fact, Sean's given name was never even Sean, but instead is Shang-Chi. Katie might not have superpowers, but she comes with a can-do attitude no matter the odds. We also learn that despite the fact that Katie works as a valet alongside Sean, that she graduated from Berkeley, but isn't really doing much with her college degree. Katie loves driving fast and karaoke, honestly a woman after my own heart. Also, she's played by Awkwafina. I love Awkwafina. I know Tarn is still currently dead right now, but man do I miss him. He was such a great and intimidating villain. Tarn was a major antagonist throughout a good amount of the Krakoan era, mainly the middle section, I'd say. Honestly, he's terrifying, so I think he deserves to be a villain to many different mutant supers. He's shown up mainly in both Hellions and X-Men Red, acting as a villain who also opposes another fellow villain who's still kind of villainous, but you know, is supposed to be, at least at the time, was supposed to be on the good side. Mr. Sinister and his team of unlikely heroes, the Hellions. Poor Hellions, oh, so sad. Tarn also fought against Storm, who had become regent of planet Arakko, formerly known as Mars. Don't worry though, Storm beat him in combat. Yes! Even though Tarn sat on the Great Ring of Arakko, their governing body, he still seemed like he was always planning something terrible, always up to some kind of Vile Mischief. And honestly, he probably was. He's basically like the Araco version of Sinister, which makes him infinitely more dangerous and overall I would say worse. I mean worse in a good way though for a villain. Tarn made his first appearance in Hellions in issue number 6 in 2020 and was created by Zeb Wells and Carmen Carnero. Horticulture is probably one of my favorite new villain teams and honestly groups of characters we've seen thus far in the Krakoan era. I still love them, I always come back to them, they're just great. They're a team of elderly women who are scientists, specifically working in botany with plants. Their goal is to eliminate a large chunk of the human population in an effort to return the Earth to a more natural and quote-unquote pristine state. Their leader is Augusta, and members include Lily, Edith, and Opal. It is possible there could be more members of Horticulture as well. These are just the 4 women that we're familiar with based on their appearances in the X-Men comics, primarily the 2019 X-Men series and the tie-in Empire Limited series, where they appeared as enemies and for a short time reluctant allies. We've also learned through the Avengers side of things that however, Augusta's great niece, was a former member of the team who split off to do her own thing. Horticulture made their first appearance in volume 5 of the X-Men in issue number 3. That's the 2019 run, baby.